Welcome to the Now or Never Show. I am your host, Kimberly Trapani. It is my pleasure to have Dr. Lee Reyna, an honorary doctorate of divinity in philosophy, I can't talk today, studies. You can correct me. That led.
Oh, yes. Well, just divinity in general.
That led strategic development as a lead strategy manager for Google and YouTube. And we're here to talk about Latin talks and mental strength. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Trapani.
I appreciate it. And you can call me Kimberly.
Absolutely, Miss Kim.
I can call you Dr. Eric Lee. And many people in the world don't know that we are human and we're learning and relearning humanism. So I'm excited to talk to you, Dr. Lee, today about many things. Let's start with, what is it like being featured in The Guardian, Voyage Houston, in the Southside magazine, and being awarded the Who's Who Top Entrepreneur? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's definitely humbling being featured in these publications and online lately. I never thought I would receive recognition like that. I never really looked for it. I never asked for it. But little by little, as I've been making movements throughout my life and, helping others achieve their goals, they kind of in turn like, hey, this guy is trying to help others. I think he deserves a little bit of recognition. So, I mean, that's how I see it. But I really never asked for it. But it's kind of strange being featured on it because I feel like I don't need to be on there sometimes. It's just, I mean, some things I like to make aware, like I like to raise awareness about what I'm doing sometimes, because more along the questions as to why I'm doing it, and that's of course for the betterment of mankind. But it definitely feels strange because it's weird being called doctor. I normally am not called doctor among my friends. I'm just Eric Lee. That's what I go by, and I go by Eric Lee a lot because my mom used to yell at me, and that's all she used to say is Eric Lee. She would get really mad. So that definitely gets my attention.
Absolutely and definitely. And a lot of people think that us people, you being a doctorate and me having a master's degree in the public eye, that we don't have feelings or are human, and there's nothing farther from the truth. But at the same time, we're here to teach and help and live and love, so for the betterment of humanity. And some people don't realize how much work that goes into obtaining a degree. Let's educate our audience. Talk to me about your doctorate.
So I have a honorary doctorate of divinity. It was a research doctorate that I actually had completed back in 2019, and it was pretty difficult. I took about a year and a half on it. I traveled to Israel. I learned a little bit more in depth about Christianity and where it derived from, just religion in general. It's a roundabout of all religions really, and how they kind of coincide to one another. And It was a lot of work. It really was a lot of work, especially during the research doctorate. You have to do your research and you have to strive insanely hard to even be recognized, um, for your life's work. Because it was definitely life's work at that. When I traveled, people thought I just traveled for luxury, but I honestly traveled for academia. And you get what you put into it, and I put quite a bit of work into it to where um, there was a time when my footnotes were actually included in the New International Version of the Bible. So that was a huge thing for me. And I could never imagine um, a more better feeling than to know that my footnotes are in a book that's read all around the world by millions.
Absolutely. And God is definitely very important. How was it like? What was it like to travel to Jerusalem?
So I traveled abroad for school, and of course, for my research doctorates, I traveled to many different countries to learn about their cultures. But that was also for work, so it kind of helped out that I was going to school and that I was going to work. And the balance was actually pretty easy. It was really insane. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was going to college. I really just focused on my academics and for just myself in general. But I felt that it was traveling was definitely opens your eyes up to new worlds, because you learn these different cultures, and it's adaptation. It's not even culture shock. It's more like, wow, this is how people live across the world. And you really think about it, not a lot of people are like us at all. And I say us, I mean like American citizens. They're very, very different, and they live simple. They live simple lives, and that's taught me I have a greater understanding of how to live. I could live extravagantly, um, but I choose not to, because yeah, I see the happiness that's caused by the simplicity of what others have. So why shouldn't I?
I hear you. And when I went to over to Italy, it broke my heart to see the people lying in the streets.
Oh
And
yes,
it's not just in Italy, it's every country in the world. We have homeless people that we have to worry about. And it just breaks my heart to no end.
yes.
And what's one thing that you learned? I worked for my degree. It was crazy. I just, when I started out, I wanted to be valedictorian of my class. But then when I graduated, I just, right a month before, wanted to just get through it. It was just so much. What's one thing you learned from your doctorate that was just an aha moment for you?
I think the most aha moment for me was when I learned that there was more truth in doctrine that I've learned, and I'm talking about the older doctrines like Dead Sea Scrolls, things that are related to the Bible, things that are related to the Quran. We had to learn a lot of history, and the aha moment for me was like how all these things kind of tied into one, and how we created, or how so many different beliefs about a higher being were created. That was the aha moment for me. It was like, whoa, this one thing changed the course of mankind and how they live, breathe, and think. And that was a big moment for me. Like, wow, if people understood what this passage or this portion actually meant, I mean, we would kind of all be one in an aspect of thinking.
Absolutely. And some people don't realize what goes into projects and that kind of thing. They don't realize what it's like to be in the public eye. And I have some red carpet experience. Can you tell me about yours? Do you have to rehearse your walk?
And no, I mean, I the red carpet experience is definitely different. I'm not used to it at all. Like I said, I'm not used to receiving applause or recognition or standing ovations or anything of that nature. I was just used to, like, okay, they're gonna call my name, I'm gonna walk the stage, I'm gonna grab my piece of paper and go home type thing. I never thought I was going to stay behind and, you know, shake hands and be recognized and be given plaques and be be immortalized on a wall or something. You know, that would be insane. And I don't know, the red carpet experience for me is something way out of my element, regardless on how used to it I am now.
Yes, and absolutely. For me, it wasn't about the red carpet experience. It was more about the meaning behind the red carpet experience.
Yes.
And again, let me restate this question. I'm going to ask it again. What is it like being featured in the Guardian, the Voyage Houston, uh, the South Side magazine,
Yes.
and getting a top entrepreneur award? What is that like for you in life?
It's like I said, it's definitely different. I'm not used to it. I'm not used to receiving that much attention. And, you know, for people to come up to me and now, you know, recognize me in various circles and my name being passed around, it's definitely different because I can go somewhere and just like yesterday, I had four interviews with the city of San Antonio, with KSAT 12, Channel 4, um, the the Texas Institute of Arts and Culture, and then a Spanish channel called Telemundo. Because I'm yesterday, as of yesterday, that I've started to receive recognition for my donations in the art district around San Antonio. So I had four interviews in one spot, 2 hours, 30 minutes apiece. So that was four 30-minute interviews. And it was rough. It was definitely rough because the last person that got to interview me was the person that has always actually wanted to meet me. And I I didn't know what to say. Like I was just like, well, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he just kept looking at me like, it's an honor, sir. It's really an honor. And I'm like, for what? I'm like you, man. Let's go grab a burger or something, you know?
Absolutely, and I know what you're talking about there. As I see the people holding the homeless signs, and I'm sitting here as Miss Drug Epidemic and Miss Human Trafficking and Miss uh, they say to me, "Oh, there's Miss Drug Epidemic. Why is she better than us?" And it's not about that at all.
Hmm.
At all. It's such a misconception, and we're going to get into talking about mental health now. And
Yes.
because what I'm finding in the United States, a lot of people are either on drugs, they're drinking to cope with life, or they're mentally ill. And
Mm.
so I pulled some statistics and I'm just going to recite them.
Sure.
According to National Institute of Mental Health, which is a government entity, mental illness is common in the United States. It is estimated that more than 1 in 5 US adults live with a mental illness. That's 57.8 million in 2021, with 27% mentally ill being females, 18% being male. What is your solution to build a strong life?
My solution to build a strong life, um, honestly, is the want or need to educate oneself about life in general. Um, I believe that it's vital to experience life, whether you're, you know, whether in poverty or whether wealthy. I think it's really important to have life lessons when it comes to, um, like people say, like hitting rock bottom. That's a life experience, and that's something that happens maybe once, you know, in your life. But that might be the thing that you need to wake up and better yourself. So sometimes I believe those portions in life are vital to one's sustainability. And even being insanely wealthy, um, you know, it's kind of the same thing. You hit a threshold, and then you finally you have a realization like, you know, this is a life experience too. There's nothing after this. I'm at the top. There's nobody here. It's just me.
That's
And
really a good point. And
mhm,
when I got an advanced entertainment law award and put my first movie to screen at a film festival, I thought I was at the top of the world. And does money really buy happiness, Dr.
no.
Lee?
No, it does not. It does definitely make things easier for you. It does. You know, you don't have to worry about a bill. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get to work. You can just buy a car. You don't have to worry about where you're going to sleep. You can just rent a hotel. There's lots of things that, you know, money does for you, but it does not buy happiness. I can definitely attest to that. It does not.
Absolutely. And running a company and doing a show and trying to be uh there was that one saying, I'm a woman. I have it all. 20 years ago, that song. I can cook. I can clean. I can do it all. But that's not really reality. Work life balance is difficult for every single person in this country. We're
Yes.
all going through something. What is your key to work life balance in trying to have a personal life versus a business life?
You know, I think separation is key when it comes to business and personal life. We have a an ethic at our work where I work, to keep drama or the work environment drama free. That means if anything is happening at home, leave it at home. If it affects you, it's going to affect your work. And that I know it's really hard to say because there are some people that are a little more sensitive than others. You know, they bring their problems to work and then it affects their work ethic. But they need to also understand that uh, when it affects their work ethic, it affects their fellow man, their work partners, the company itself. Because now we can't function for what we hired you to do. You know, if I hired you to be a cashier and you have a problem at home focusing, whether it's on drugs or alcohol, then you're going to fail at your job and you can't count. You know, it fogs your vision. It doesn't allow you to give back proper change. So yes, I believe that there should be separation when it comes to um, work and personal life. I mean, if you're going to do something at work, it's going to require discipline, and it's going to require that one would definitely one would definitely separate any personal matters aside from work.
Mhm. Let's talk about strength and getting stronger for a few minutes before commercial.
Hmm.
What is your solutions to staying strong mentally? And does the mind affect the body and the body affect the mind? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh yes, I can definitely expound on that. So your mind drives your body, and then of course your body taking care of it is going to nurture your mind, which means you need to get sleep, you need to get food, you need to drink water. The three most important things a human can do for their mind. But also within the mind, it also needs three things. And that is, of course, it needs to breathe, it needs to regenerate, and it also needs to be worry free. And the way it can do that, of course, is to isolate oneself. Everybody needs a little bit of isolation sometimes, and that means walking away, taking that break, going outside, taking a quick walk, breathing some air. You know, that will definitely help somebody out. Um, you know, and then of course, stressing. We need to also understand that there are a lot of things that are out of our control, and the things that we cannot control we need not worry about sometimes, regardless of the matter. Sometimes it's really rough to say what that thing is that we worry about, whether it's maybe a family member's dying. Well, that's not in our hands. You know, that's the big man upstairs, if you believe that. Or, you know, it can be just something medical wise that you can't do anything about because we are not all of us are doctors. You know, so it's out of our control. But I believe that the mind and the body and the mind go hand in hand, they coincide, and you have to take care of both equally. And to sustain the the health of both, we have to definitely be self-aware of what we're doing and allowing our minds to see, and what we're allowing our bodies to ingest. And that would be sleep, drinking, eating, things like that.
It's a really good point. And sometimes when I get so stressed and overwhelmed, I need a quiet, padded, dark room away from people. No offense to people,
Hmm.
but it just sometimes life can get overwhelming and it gets to be too much. We're going to take a short commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Latin talks. Stay tuned.
Great.
Welcome back to the Now or Never show. And I am just so privileged to be speaking with Dr. Eric Lee Reyna. He is an amazing doctorate of divinity and a very, very good friend of mine, amazing person, and appreciate your time, Dr. Eric Lee.
Thank you for
Let's
having
get
me.
let's get right into it and let's talk about what Latin Talks is and what's coming up for you.
Yes. So another exciting thing that's fairly new here throughout the United States is a show called Latin Talks. It's kind of like TED Talks, only this is more inspirational. It serves its purpose to teach others about people such as me, our life struggles and how we got through them, and how we got to our success, how we reached it. We drop little nuggets, little I guess little pieces of education to people, and give them advice on how to not necessarily be successful, but to be a better person, and then to show people that we're human, and there was nothing special that we did to just get here. We're just regular old Joes, really. But Latin Talks goes around various states. They just got, I think, back from New York, and it's a traveling group of people. It's a community of not only Latinos, but people that originate from Latin islands, Latin venture, Latin culture. But it's not just Latinos. It's like Central Americans, Puerto Ricans, things of that nature. People who are kind of like outsiders, but not just focused around Latinos. Um, but it shows that the minority, there is strength and there is wealth in the minority, and we tell people how we got to that point. One of my stories, I'll be featured first in Latin Talks this year on June 17th of this
Awesome.
of this year. um, I'll be featured. I'll be speaking publicly downtown San Antonio. I forget where, but I will be speaking about my story on how I became who I am now, my life struggles, and now my success. and how I'm continuing to better myself, and of course, helping my community get to where it needs to be.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were and how you became so successful?
Yes, of course. So I grew up not having much. My folks didn't have much. They strived really hard to do anything they could for myself and my sister. I'm one brother of one sister. I just have a sibling, and we didn't have much growing up. We were pretty fortunate just to have a home, and that home never had you know warm water. My mom had to actually heat it up for us so we can have a hot bath. So I remembered things like that, and there were times where we didn't have anything to eat. My mom would sacrifice her meals, or my dad would sacrifice her meals, or they would take turns throughout
Wow.
the day, just to make sure that myself and my sister eats. So I remember things like that. And as I got older, things started changing for the better. My dad got a better job, and he became super successful at a later age, probably when he was around the time of, like, maybe around my age, maybe 27, 28 years old, which is where I came into play. I achieved a lot of my success and wealth through private equity and being able to invest in various businesses that have a small marginal return on my investments.
Mhm.
I did a lot of micro loans. I loaned a lot of um, my monetary gain out to different companies, sometimes small mom and pop stores, and then of course, um, different firms and whatnot, and it kind of came back tenfold because I was I was
Yeah.
forward with these people. I was straightforward, and I'm like, I can do this for you, and you can just help me out. Well, it became word of mouth, like, hey, there's this kid that's helping people out. Why don't you go and ask him for some help, and he'll take care of you. And that just turned from 5 different businesses into
Wow.
hundreds. And I was able to, of course, make a small margin off of, just interest itself, off of those companies. And I really never spent it. I just reinvested because that allowed me to invest more in other companies that I wanted to invest in that reached out. Because sometimes there were companies that I had to turn down that wanted millions, and I didn't have millions at the time. I was just able to loan a few thousand. And when they came around and the time came and I accumulated all these, I had plenty of monetary gain. I was able to loan out these larger amounts with a larger interest rate. And every time I loaned it out and received my principal interest back, or principal um, funds back, the interest would stay, and I would just put that interest back in the bank and use, whatever I could. But all my interest in these companies, I would save and put in a separate bank. So I put everything that I've earned into a separate account versus what I had already had. And then sometimes throughout the year, at the end of the year, I just take a small portion out of whatever I had loaned out that year and put it in the bank. That's what I earned. So it wasn't much, but I kept doing that and repeating it, and I was really good at it. And if I did that on multiple terms, like if I have one company that wanted $500 or $5,000 or $50,000 at 12% interest, and I times that by 40 companies, that's already quite a bit that I'm already going to get back in interest. So it's definitely something that I've worked hard on and that I've developed relationships with, but it's always about, it's not what you know. I mean, in this case, yes, it's what you know, but it's also who you know as well.
Absolutely. And how much time does it take for people to build money? You mentioned it was $500 or
Hmm.
$50,000. How much time for an ROI to substantiate some sort of monetary gain?
So the way it works on my end, and I'm not afraid to talk about this because it's actually public. Whenever you're making an investment, it depends on the investment. So if you're, for instance, I do a lot of pharmaceutical companies and pharmaceutical testing and grading companies, and a lot of people don't know how much much funds are in that, because nobody's willing to invest in it. But these companies will reach out, small pharmaceutical companies, and say, hey, we got some testing we need to do, or we need product, we need um, this, that, or the other. We need factories, and we can't do it without $100,000. And you're going to be doing this, and they throw this whole spiel. You're going to be helping the community. You're going to be doing this, and I'm like, okay, well, I have to look into the company. I have to look at how much you have in your bank. I have to look at how long you've been in business and how well you're doing, and why you need, if you're doing so well, and it's such a good idea worth millions. Why are you asking me for 100,000? So it has to I have to definitely weigh all of those factors in. So I go in, I make sure everything's correct, and I make sure that the company's worth at least 100,000. Because if it isn't, I won't invest. But it takes me roughly, I'd say, a little under 4 weeks to make my decision. I execute. I make them sign many, many papers, so that way I can protect my investment. I issue a check, or I issued like an e-pass. There, it's direct deposit type thing, like a wire transfer. And as soon as it's out, they have anywhere from 6, 9 to 12 months to pay me back at 12%, or if it's a higher risk, I go as high as sometimes 35%. It just
Mhm.
depends, and then I have to have stake in the company at that point. And then when the time comes around for them to pay me back, either if it's in increments, they just have that long to pay me back. But the full amount with interest is due at the very end of that 12, 9, or 6 months. And as soon as that's done, I can relinquish all of my paperwork and take my hands off of the stake in their company. I don't necessarily have to have it, and it's more of a headache too, because now I have to manage my stake. I have to make sure that the company is always doing well, and I just don't do that. I actually let them go.
Thank you for explaining that about financial investments, and explain it so people can understand it as well. Let's switch gears a little bit. What projects are you most proud of that you have done in your lifetime?
Currently, I am proud of helping develop um, apps that help people exercise. So that means a lot to me. There's a lot of companies that have reached out via LinkedIn and said that they had an idea for an app that would help people stay on their diets. It would help people manage their monies and manage their calories and things like that. And I know a lot of people are like, but there's apps for that already. Yes, but I have invested in people who are still looking to better those apps. And when they reach out to those people who have the good programs, the other people are like, we don't need your help. So they make up their own. And I think that's pretty bold, especially when they're going against the grain and they have competition, but yet they're a little bit more, they're quickly successful when it comes to making these apps, because there are clientele that download these apps locally, and
Yes.
they're pretty faithful to it. And it's really interesting, but I'm really proud of what those people have accomplished, especially going against the grain. Like I said, they're so small. These apps are so small. They have sometimes less than 10,000 downloads worldwide, nationwide, wherever the apps are available, and they're actually doing really well.
Where do you find these apps? Is it in the Microsoft Store on your
You
cell
can find
phone,
them wherever they're available. It could be Microsoft Store, Google Play, or the what is it?
iTunes,
Yeah, the
Apple's
Apple Store. Yes. Uh-huh.
Macintosh? Yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah, they
do
can
you write
definitely find them there.
applications, or do you consult with the people that are writing the apps and on the back office side?
So they always win me over, because I love a good hype sometimes. When a person believes in their product, they're excited. They hype their product up. If they believe in themselves, they talked about themselves in third person. It just really depends on the type of pitch it is. And I love a good ask. That's what we call it. When somebody comes in and they have an ask for us, and it's a good one, if the pitch is amazing, I'm more than likely going to say yes, because even if it's a bad idea, I know I'm going to own the company, which is sad to say, because I have done that before. I unfortunately have a really bad nickname when it comes to the business that I do. and they tell people that sometimes they, and I use this term very loosely and I really hate it, but this is what I'm also known for when it comes to making deals. And they say, well, you're going to go shake hands with the devil, because sometimes people's companies, they go belly up. And what happens at that point is I have to liquidate or sell somehow to get my principal interest back, to get everything that I've given them back. Because not only did I spend my time, I trusted them, with my funds. And if I gave these people $500,000 to invest in a specific product that they hyped me up for and had all the reason in the world to believe that it was going to be a winner when it wasn't, I get really sad, and I hate taking what they worked hard for. But sometimes I have to. I have no choice. I have to liquidate whatever they worked hard for, and I have to turn it into zero. I have to turn it to nothing until I get everything back. And people are like, well, that guy's evil. He takes everything. And I'm like, well, no, you did it to yourself. You promised me that you would pay me back and that you would give me just a little bit on top of that because you needed help. And that's what I did for you. And then for you to turn around and not follow through, I have no choice but to do what I have to do to protect my investments. And I don't do it by force. Everything's all paper. I only have to come out then with litigation instead of, being physical. I don't have to do any of that. Because then at that point I would be a loan shark, which I'm not. So
it's very true. It's amazing how all consuming filming has survived COVID. It has to take some sort of business sense.
mhm.
And I learned from Maxwell and Green in my leadership studies,
Oh
who has
yes.
been most influential to you.
Hmm. So the who's been most influential to me, honestly, it's a community. It's actually, no, there is an influential person in my life, and she is really, she's definitely something else. She started a business out of COVID, a very successful one, publications, and she's been successful ever since. She has been recognized by our state's capital, our Texas state capital, Austin, and she's received recognition from our I think it's
Nice.
from the House of Representatives, but she her name is April May Monterosa. She is a editor in chief from Live from the Southside magazine, who's the one that interviewed me, and she also has a radio show on KLMO 98.9 FM, and she's very uplifting. Like she sees the good in everything. She's always trying to help others, and she's just an all around good person. And I don't know. I really love how inspired she is just off of herself. She's her own inspiration, and she knows what she's capable of. And I love that she's this type of animal, that can just go out there and get what needs to get done. So I really look up to her. She is definitely, and I use this term loosely also, but she is definitely a small demigod among men, because there's nothing I haven't seen her do that's failed, really. She's might have had a couple downfalls, but she's turned it around and it's become extremely successful. So I look up to her. And April, if you're watching, I love you, man. You're freaking amazing.
Dr. Eric Lee, is it okay to fail?
Yes, it is. It is okay to fail, because now you know what not to do to become successful. I mean, if you're going to fail, now it's a life lesson. It's a life lesson that you've learned, and you learn what not to do and how to do something. So it's like, how do I make toast? Well, you got to make the attempt first. And if you burn it the first few times, well, now you know to keep lowering the temperature until you get there. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a perfect piece of toast, but you got to fail 9 times to get that one yes, or to get that one right move. So it's just like life. You got to keep getting on that bike. You got to keep going. You got to keep trying to make it work until it does.
What quotes do you want to recite to the world to inspire them?
Um, oops, my apologies. So honestly, I believe firmly in paying it forward, especially when you've been giving something for free and you know it's free. So I'm not talking about, monetary gains. Sometimes we need that to help us help others, so we have to manage that very carefully. But I'm talking about, like, if you've been given the spotlight, it's good to share, especially when you know that you didn't do it on your own. Just like myself, when I know that I have been given something and they're like, oh, Mr. Reyna, you've done this, you've done that. And like, yeah, but I couldn't have done it without the people that worked for me. I couldn't have done it without this guy here who molded this sculpture or who helped me achieve this. Yes, it was, me that had the idea to do this, that, and the other, but these guys helped me out. So I believe there's one quote. It says, freely freely ye have received, freely give. So I believe in paying it forward. That's what it comes down to. It's definitely something that I have done throughout my life, and I believe that it's vital, insanely vital.
Absolutely. And you talked about Jerusalem at the beginning of the segment. Does what inspires you? For some people it's Buddha, from some people it's Christianity. And what or who can you give our audience advice on how to keep going? I can remember times, yes, my sister died. The world knows that. She was an attorney in New York State defending doctors. I've gotten physically assaulted and I couldn't handle. I was at the bottom of the barrel. I couldn't handle it when I was in this bad relationship and they were going to ruin my life and career. From your perspective, what advice do you have for people that don't see a way out? Is there anybody that they could follow? Any books they could read? What inspiration do you have for the world, for our audience that is struggling, that doesn't have a way out right now?
So I just want to let everyone know that there is a way out of everything. Everything, there is a way of escape, even though it seems like you're trapped. And what really helped me out, of course, is looking for truth, seeking truth. And a lot of people ask, well, what is truth? Where do I find it? Who is telling it? Where can I find this person who is speaking truth? And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily person, it's persons. Um, I found truth in different passages, in different proverbs, and not just according to the Bible or the Quran or the Septuagint or anything like that of that nature. I've found it in other people's struggles. I listened to other people that were in the same financial struggle or emotional struggle or mental struggle as I had. That's what I would look for. That's why I'm always intrigued with other people's problems, because I myself learned through them how not to do something. So I find out how they got there, and I'm like, well, I'm never doing that now because they've just taught me what not to do. And I believe that it's definitely something we can look for, but we have to look for other people who are in the same boat as we are, not necessarily
Okay.
looking for um, guidance. It's more along the lines of, like, well, who else is going through what I'm going through? Who else is getting hurt? Or who else is getting, you know, um, I financially distressed because of the situation that I'm in? I think I need, this, that, or the other. I believe it vital to seek out help, or to seek the light at the end of the tunnel by finding the darkness first, your own darkness. And that's your own struggle. You have to look at others who are having that exact same struggle and find out. You have to listen to them and find out what they did wrong and how they got out of it.
Absolutely. It's not taking pleasure in other people's pain, but actually learning from the experience for the embetterment and empowering. And the mind is so micro, like it doesn't see the sky as a limit, or we can go to the universe or any of that.
Yes.
um, it's so small, and most people tend to think that they have limits. Can you talk about a little bit about boundaries versus limits before we wrap?
Yes. So boundaries versus limits. A boundary is something that you know that you shouldn't cross. Yes. There is a boundary, kind of like, I mean, like at the Grand Canyon. You go to the Grand Canyon, there's ropes everywhere. You can't go past a certain limit, because if you do, you can't. If you go past that boundary, you're gonna fall. It's inevitable, you know. But limits can actually be pushed, because if I mean, everyone drives one, most all over the world, but we have speeding limits, and that speeding limit is more of a regulation, because they know that if you go past a certain limit, you're going to start having problems, or you can endanger others. But there are also people who break those limits, and those are race car drivers. They know that the there is no speeding limit around the racetrack. They just go, and the faster they go, the more capable, the more prone they are to winning. You know, we have limits, on the road. We have speeding limits, because they the others know, the government knows that if we go past it all at once, if all of us try to exceed those limits, we're going to all crash. Because I can't imagine people going 80, 90, and 100 miles an hour at different times down a highway, and then attempting to stop because one car is going the limit, which is 60, 65, 70. And uh, mm, you know boundaries is something, you can't cross, but limits is something, that's there. That it's more along the lines of uh like, hey, this is as far as you can go, but you're capable of doing more.
Absolutely. And pushing the mind, the brain a little farther than m- being used to or what the norm is within the rules of the law may be surprising consequence to that.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your upcoming projects and how one would contact you or reach you for speaking engagements?
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me, you can find me, actually, you can actually email me at Eric. It's going to be Eric, ERIC, at nelcomedia.net. That's NELCO, media, MEIDA.net. You can reach me for speaking events. I do also, not necessarily motivational speaking. It's more along the lines of, I go to like places of financial institutions. I speak on financing and helping others achieve their goals, maybe giving somebody a little bit more insight. Um, the let me see, what was your the
And the
initial.
projects you have coming up in the
Yes,
future that
okay.
you can talk about.
Yes. So we have a few projects coming up, for my line of work. I do broadcast integration right now. We work for live television, but we are the guys that nobody sees. We don't do production. We just kind of build the studios. But we have a lot of things that are coming up in Las Vegas. We have things coming up in Wichita Falls, with a couple of governments trying to make them better. But it looks like a lot of the projects that we're doing right now, um, it looks like there's going to be a change in the weather, as far as like being able to communicate on a live stream basis, kind of like how we're doing now. You're in a different part of the United States, and so am I. So this is almost a new way of communicating. Zoom, Restream, things like that of that nature, Discord, Facebook Live. They are trying to integrate these new things so that way we can stay connected, but from afar. Um, I believe that that's our next biggest thing. That is our next big project, is making the world, um, being able to communicate with them via telecommunications, via fiber, via SDI. Um, just a new innovative way of communicating to other humans across the world. But that's pretty much our next big project. Also, there are some things happening downtown San Antonio that I can't talk too much about, but I can drop a hint and say that, um, I can drop a hint and say, you know, let's see, how would I be able to reiterate it? Because I did sign an NDA yesterday, uh,
Oh goodness.
not to say it.
Non-disclosure agreement for our audience.
Yes, yes, and but I can say, uh, keep your eyes towards downtown. Um, Something might change. Hmm.
Absolutely, and miss my friends at the Riverwalk. And
Oh yes, definitely.
it's beautiful in San Antonio right now, isn't it? Is
Yes,
Fiesta
we're about to
coming up?
have some rain shortly.
Yeah, and Fiesta's coming up, right? Or did
We just finished having it actually.
all right, tell the country about Fiesta because they have to go next year.
Yes, so Fiesta is a 9-day event. It happens early April, and what it is the celebration of the San Antonio culture, where we came from. It's food, it's dancing, it's parades. The city takes a lot of pride in our culture and where we've come from throughout the years and our history as far as a people. So we march downtown. We create old recipes and we share them with others. Um, we gather together, we sing together, we laugh together. It's just kind of like a really big downtown party where San Antonio gets back together. We all get back to our roots and remind ourselves who we are and why we're so prideful of our city.
It's super fun,
Yes.
and I appreciate you, Dr. Eric Lee. I appreciate your time to talk about Latin Talks, and we'll be looking for you on Latin Talks. Hopefully, you'll have somebody make a video and you can message it to me.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, it will be recorded. Yes.
Okay, great. So we can look for it. And I appreciate your time, Dr. Eric Lee. And you're welcome back on my show now or never, anytime. Distribution is changing in the film world as
Oh,
well.
yes.
Yes. And understood that we have a 2023 that is over the COVID emergency. And now we can look for Dr. Eric Lee and his Reyna and his projects in the future because he is the public eye entrepreneur, top who's who, and is everywhere. And I appreciate your time, Dr. Eric Lee. Any last thoughts?
My goodness, you guys who are watching this show, I mean, it really is now or never. It's do or die. It's adapt or die. Don't develop someday syndrome. No procrastination. The work needs to get done. Things need to get done. Papers need to get signed to make things happen. So it really is now or never. So don't don't waste time. Time is of the essence. Time is precious. We don't have a lot of it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I wish you happiness, wellness, and wonderful success in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for having me on this show.
Thank you.